If I hadn't had the X10 machine, I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't even be able to go. I'd still be like baby stepping it down the stairs. Now I can go down the stairs 1 foot at a time, the way, you should. So.
Welcome to The Bee's Knees, a podcast full of articles, interviews, clinical studies, and advice about knee surgery, physical therapy, and life after knee surgery.
Hi, welcome to the Bee's Knees podcast. This is your host, PJ Ewing. Today we've got a story of recovery from Gina. Gina is interviewed by Mary Elliott in our office in Michigan. And quickly, I'll tell you that Gina broke her knee on a cruise, day one on the cruise, ruining the whole trip. She spent the whole time in the room, in pain, in a brace, if you can imagine. Thank goodness it was only a 5-day cruise. Afterwards, she had the surgery, found out, of course, that it was a tibial plateau fracture and had to recover from that. 2, then 3 months go by. It's not going well. She's looking for an intervention, and she comes across the X10. I'll let Mary and Gina tell you the rest of the story. It's a great one. Thanks for listening, and here we go.
Hi, this is Mary Elliott from X10. I am being joined today by a wonderful human being, Regina, who's going to share her story with us. She had a mishap on a cruise, and she's going to enlighten us about what actually happened to her and where she went from there once it happened, and hopefully guide all of you into a smooth recovery if you ever need one. Hi, Regina. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gina. Let's see, I'm 44 years old, pretty active, and had this injury that was life-changing and stopped me in my tracks. And I fell on a cruise. I broke my leg. It's called a tibial plateau fracture. It's right where the knee and the tibia meet. And after surgery, that left me no weight bearing for 5 weeks. And that was pretty devastating because I couldn't do anything myself. I had to have someone help me do everything. And I'm just not that kind of person. So I like to be independent. So I started going to physical therapy about 2 weeks after, but once again, I couldn't put any weight on it, so there wasn't much that they could do for me. When they were finally given the okay to start really pressing and moving it, that was on May 8th.
How many weeks from when you had your surgery was that?
Well, I had my surgery on the 18th of March, so.
Okay, so about 2 months after is when?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 2 months after you had this surgery, now you can do weight bearing. Explain to everyone what that means. Like what in the 2 months that you were going through this, what was life like? What were you able to do and what weren't you able to do?
The first 5 weeks after surgery, I wasn't able to do anything. I was in a wheelchair. I could not put any weight whatsoever on my leg. So I had to be transported in a wheelchair, crutches to get to the bathroom, crutches to get to my bed, wheelchair to go to therapy because they did start therapy within 2 weeks after surgery. But like I said, it basically was moving my knee a little bit, but couldn't put any pressure to get any of those muscles moving.
How are you feeling? Were you in physical pain, or how did that feel?
Oh yes. I was in a lot of pain. It was, like I said, it was devastating. It was. You're in a lot of pain. You're stuck. You're at. Someone has to help you do everything. You couldn't make dinner for your kids. You couldn't do the laundry for your kids. You couldn't, take your kids to school, So a lot of changes had to happen. And after they finally were able to start pressing on it, that was on May 8th. On May 23rd is when I was finally allowed to walk on it. So then I had just a brace and a cane. I wasn't going very fast. I was still only at about less than a 90-degree angle. And I was getting pretty discouraged. that things weren't happening fast enough. And that's when I found X10. I was looking for things that I could do to help with my knee online, and your, I think it was a YouTube video popped up, and I saw it, and it was Memorial Day weekend, and I kept calling you guys, and you guys called me back, I think it was on Tuesday, and you got me in there to try your machine, because luckily I am local, probably on Thursday.
Yeah, yep. I remember.
Yeah, well, we had to reschedule, and you stayed there until like 7 o'clock at night so I could get there.
Well, I tell you what, Regina, I could feel how stressed you were about it, and if I could help, right? I wanted to be helpful that way. Yep. And I wanted to make sure we could help you, because at that point I didn't know, because at some point that scar tissue gets so thick that, you know, maybe the X10 can't be an answer. So I just wanted to make sure that we move forward as successfully as possible, and for your emotions too. You know, I wanted to make sure you were taken care of peacefully that way too. But let me ask you something. All right, so you're on a cruise and you get injured. What happened on the cruise? Was that the tail end of your cruise, the beginning of the cruise?
No, unfortunately, that was the beginning of my cruise. That was the second day of my cruise. It wasn't a super long cruise. It was only a 5-day cruise. So it's not like I had to suffer almost another week, but it was the, you know, beginning, so I didn't get to enjoy the cruise. I went down to medical. They put a leg immobilizer, complete leg immobilizer on, and I spent the majority of that time in the room. I came out once to go up to the pool deck for about an hour, was in too much pain, once for dinner, and once for brunch, just so because we had a large group, so I wanted to visit with our group, but that was about it. The rest of the time I spent in bed with my leg propped up, immobilized, and in a lot of pain because, you know, surgery hadn't been done yet. Nothing had been done. So I basically have, you know, a broken bone in there just chilling. So,
wow, my goodness. I can only imagine. I'm sure that was really painful on top of everything else. Were you in a lot of pain too, Gina? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, yeah, especially the flight home, that change in pressure, that was difficult. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get home. Now, mind you, you didn't have any time to prepare or educate yourself about, oh gosh, how do I deal with this and where do I go from here? So you have this surgery, you come out of surgery. What were you expecting? Were you expecting, oh, well, this is going to be smooth sailing, I'm going to do what they tell me to do? Like, what were you expecting?
I expected, you know, I've broken bones before, and I've come out of it just fine. Like, I broke my foot, you know, 3 years ago, and I had a boot on for, you know, 2.5 months. I came out of it. There was no issues. There was no pain. I didn't need physical therapy. Everything was fine. This I knew was going to be a lot more of a recovery than that because I had surgery. I had a plate put in. I had screws put in. But I didn't expect it to be as much as it was. I didn't realize how much muscle I would lose and how difficult it would be just to get my leg moving again. And like I said, because I did have, you know, 5 weeks where I couldn't move it at all, and then another 3 weeks where they couldn't even touch it. So I basically had 8 weeks of just scar tissue building up.
Well, when you're very independent and active, that gives you a lot of time, right, downtime of thinking. And I know those thoughts can get pretty toxic pretty fast, right, when you're put in a situation where you feel really vulnerable, right, vulnerable and weak. And when you're independent, right, that's so hard to take. I know. It takes all your courage, right, and your positive thinking to kind of climb out of there.
They had told me that I could go to therapy, but that they couldn't because they had taken me off of, because I was 5 weeks no weight bearing, and then I was about 3 weeks where I was like 50% weight bearing, and that those 3 weeks, even though I was now walking with my crutches and no longer using a wheelchair, they still weren't allowed to press on it. They weren't allowed to manipulate it or do anything to really get it moving yet. So I went 8 weeks before they could really get it moving.
Okay, so now they get it moving, and what happens from there? Like, what's going on physically, emotionally, what's happening?
Well, I thought that once they could get it moving, like that things were just going to start moving fast, and they weren't. It was very discouraging that once they measured how far I could move it, and I wasn't even at 90 yet. So very discouraging after them telling you that you'll be back to normal in 3 months, and you're at the 2-month period, and you're not even at 90.
All right. Well, what about straightening your leg? Could you extend it fully, or was that an issue too? Was it the bending and straightening, or was it? It was more
the flexion. It was more the bending than the extension. But even the extension was still not at 0. I got it to about 15, and then they with pushing it down, could get it to about 8. Sometimes a 5, depending on how swollen my leg was that day or whatever. But they could never get it to a 0, and they couldn't get me even close to 130. So that's when I realized I have to do something else. On top of this physical therapy, there must be something else out there. And that's when I found X10. I was looking. I didn't even know there was such a thing as X10. I was looking for one of those knee machines.
Okay.
What are they called? The
CPM machine?
Yeah.
The CPM machine, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's how I stumbled upon you guys.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you found us. I was glad to meet you. All right. So now you find the X10. And I remember you came into the office that night, and I could just see you literally shifting emotionally just while you were with me during that short time. Tell me what was going on in your mind. What were you thinking?
I was thinking, wow, I can't believe that there is something that is going to help me, because I saw in that half hour, because I know you were nervous about it, because I'd been now 10 weeks basically post-surgery, and you said a lot of scar tissue, and you didn't know if it would work for me. So there were a lot of emotions going through, because after that half hour, I had already gained a degree. I had also gone back further on my flexion than I had at therapy without excruciating pain. So I thought, wow, this can actually work. And I was also really happy that I had brought my husband with me so he could see, because he wasn't thrilled with having, to pay for it. I mean, it's expensive. It's very expensive, especially when we're already paying all these medical bills for the surgery, and I've been paying, to go to physical therapy for months upon months, So he wasn't positive that it was something I actually needed, and I was glad that he was there to see that, wow, I did need it, and this is going to work. And we walked out of there both agreeing that we couldn't wait to get it in the house because we knew it would work.
All right. So and I'm so glad that happened too. That made me, that's why I do what I do, is to have that kind of reaction, right? To know that I'm actually helping somebody move forward in their lives. That's a good feeling for me too. So thanks, Regina, for that. But all right. So, okay, so now you get the X10 in your home. Tell me what's going on. So can you go through your experience emotionally and physically, what was happening, what you noticed?
Well, I knew I was getting the machine, so I hadn't gotten as down on myself as I had been. By the time I got the machine, because I came in to see you, I said it was right after Memorial Day, I couldn't get the machine in here. The earliest you could get it to me was the 10th of June, and I was going to be gone, so I didn't have the machine come in until the 18th of June. So I did have another 3 weeks at therapy while I was working, and we had gotten it where they could press, or they could bend my leg to about 112.
And okay, so they're bending your leg. You could not do that on your own. That was them bending your leg.
No, I was
right?
probably getting to about 101
Okay,
on my own, 105 on my own. But I wasn't getting anywhere near close to what, they had been promising at this point.
Okay, so explain to me what a day typically looked like before X10. Like what were you working on? Were you doing exercises plus going to therapy? Like what was the day?
I was going to physical therapy, and I would work on the elliptical bike, and I do stretching exercises. I do, the small floor hurdles, and then I'd spend probably about 15, 20 minutes with the therapist where they'd actually manipulate the knee and try and, straighten it and bend it and press on it and get it down, to 0 degree or bend it to, as much as they could. And then I would come home and, I'd do housework, and I do my exercises, which, basically just consisted of kind of the same things doing there, some bending exercises, strengthening. But that was about it. There's not much I can do at home for strengthening. I don't have any weight machines really, you know what I mean? So
sure.
Don't think I was doing a whole lot with strengthening other than I was up and walking, and I was trying to, do a couple of stairs. I couldn't do stairs when the X10 came into my house because I couldn't bend and flex all the way. So I can do stairs now, which is a huge
Yay!
Yeah.
For sure, freedom, right? Yes, it's fantastic. Yay!
Yeah, I
okay,
can go downstairs and do laundry.
Wow! Right, life of a mother. Love it. Okay. All right. So now X10 comes in. How did your life change? Emotionally, physically? Tell me what happened after that.
Well, I was super excited. I had told everybody that I knew that this was coming into my house. So everyone knew about it, and everyone was so excited to come and see it once it got there. And everyone was excited because they could see how excited I was, like how they just hadn't seen me that happy since this had happened. And
I know I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm sorry about that. But tell people how important to be excited about when you're trying to recover from something, how valuable it is to be able to have that emotion going on, right?
You have to, because it's not easy. It's not like it's not going to be painful, and it takes a lot of your time. So you have to have a good attitude about it. This is probably your number one thing with recovery is a good attitude, because you're the only one that can really push you through it. No one else can do that for you. It has to be you that does it.
That's right. And so what were you excited about? Like, why did this cause excitement?
Because the last time I had used it in your office, I had already seen changes in the degree that I could extend and I could flex. And I had only used it for 30 minutes in your office. So now it was in my house, and I could use it as much as I wanted to. I could do it 3 times a day. I could do it 5 times a day. It was up to me what I wanted to do. And I knew the more that I used it, the more I would get out of it. So I was pretty religious about getting on that machine. And I have an active lifestyle, so there were times, you can ask my coach, I'd be on the machine at midnight, because I had to get that third one in,
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it paid off, right? You saw Okay.
So when Marty came in to hook up the machine for me as he was leaving, he said, "Okay," he said, "so they have you set here for a goal of 110. And I said, "Nope." I said 130. I said, "That's my goal." I'm like, I know they're being, cautious because my leg is, it's so far after surgery. It was 3 months after surgery by the time this came into my house. So I know you guys were being cautious, but I I just had the feeling about this machine. I just knew that I could do it. And what is so great about it is that you push yourself and you control the pain. So, I mean, and you do have to push through the pain. I'm not saying it's painless, but every day you can see that you can push through the pain a little more. And it's amazing. It's just amazing.
That's beautiful. Well, tell them exactly what you accomplished. Why don't you share what you actually did accomplish, and within how many days?
I got to 0 on my extension, and I got to 130 on my flexion, and that was with the machine. My active range of motion, though, was 123. That was all on my own.
Fantastic.
When the machine came into my house on the 18th, I was at physical therapy before that, and I was at 112 with active range of motion. Within 2 weeks, the machine did for me what physical therapy had not been able to do for me in 3 months.
And
I still wouldn't be at 123 right now if it wasn't for this machine.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think there was such a difference between those two? Methods?
I think it's because when they're bending my leg at physical therapy, of course, I'm trying to, let it go as far as I can, and it takes so much pain. But I don't know. It's that they can't feel the pain, so they may push harder, or you may resist more because you're afraid they're going to push too hard. Whereas the machine shuts off if it pushes too hard. It stops because it feels your resistance. Whereas I don't think, unless you were to go and kick them in the face, the physical therapist feels the resistance, really. I mean, and I don't mean kick them in the face to be mean. I'm just finally you would just your leg would give up, because
right.
Yeah.
You can tolerate it. Well, I think, too, obviously, right, only you know what you're feeling. I mean, we can be as intuitive as we can be if we were to touch your leg, but at the end of the day, only you can feel really what's going on inside your leg, right? So,
and you can't explain it to anyone because you try to, and I still can't explain to anyone how my leg feels, but I can tell everyone it feels a lot better now that I had the X10. I only wish I could have had it longer, but I was already at 130. I think really what I would have liked it for was for more of the strengthening because my quads and hams are still so weak.
Yeah, that's going to take time. But you did, I noticed you used it not just for your range of motion, but for the strengthening. How did that feel, having those muscles contracting? Yeah,
I loved it. The strengthening was awesome, and that you could see how what your number was, so you could always try and beat that. That's what I always kept doing. Because you just it's a little competition with yourself. You see that, and you're like, oh, okay, I got 101 on my calves. This time I want 105. And you just keep going up and up and up. And I was able to do that. Even with the quads, which is my hamstrings are my weakest. Even with my hamstrings, I was always able to beat my score. So, then that it's working.
Well, can you explain to them what a day was like on the X10? What was involved? What was a typical day for you?
Okay. So it did a lot of binge watching. So make sure that you have a show you want to watch because you're on it a lot.
What was your show? What was your show? Just out of curiosity, what did you watch?
I was just watching. It's a show. It was called The Fosters. It was about a family that adopts foster kids.
I've seen that. Yes, very nice show. Yep. Okay.
Yep. So I was watching that show. I had just found out about it, and the show's already over, but it was 5 seasons, so I had a lot to catch up on. So a normal day would be I would wake up, I would have some breakfast, I'd get on the machine, I'd warm up for about 5 minutes, and then I would have it work me. after talking to my coach on the second day, we had already bumped up my range of motion that it was stretching me in the beginning, and then I would just see where I could go to that day. I was really not having a huge problem getting to 0 anymore, but I was still having, getting all the way back to 130. So we just see where it went. And, it went, from 100 to 110 to 115, 116, 117. It just went up a little every day. And probably by the last, 3 or 4 days, I was getting to 130. So.
Oh, I am so happy for you, Gina. I am so happy for you.
Yeah, it was great. And I called it my tether, because honestly, you need to think of it like that. Like, you need to be on the machine, So just think of it like, for these 2 weeks, this is my life, and just go on the machine. I would have, I'd make my lunch and go back on the machine and sit there and eat my lunch and watch my show, and then ice and elevate, and then take a couple hours off, make dinner and stuff, and then sit on it again. There were times where, I did it only 3 times. There were times where I did it, 4 or 5 times. So just
for how long?
On how I was feeling. I always did it for a minimum of a half hour. So I would do 5 minutes of stretch and then a half hour. So always did it for a minimum of that.
Okay. And what would you want to share that we really haven't talked about yet with somebody who had an injury like you and was thrown into surgery unexpected? Any advice you want to give them besides what we already talked about?
No, just keep a positive attitude. Don't always take what they say to heart, because they don't know your body, and they also don't know, like, when they were telling me that they could get me to normal, they were talking so I could, sit down. Well, that's not what normal is to me. Normal is I need to be able to run and jump and climb, and I need to be able to do all of those things, So you have to push yourself. You have to push yourself. You have to ask questions. I mean, maybe if I had asked questions to the surgeon, I would have found out about this. Highly unlikely, since he has his own PT place, but it's possible, And then maybe if I could have used it earlier, I would already, I'd be exactly where I want to be. Because, I'm at 130 now, 123, 125 with my range of motion, but my other leg goes to 145, so I want to get them, even. So that's just going to take time. That's my muscles needing to build. But I'm worlds ahead of where I would have been if I was just doing therapy right now. If I hadn't had the X10 machine, I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't even be able to go. I'd still be like baby stepping it down the stairs. Now I can go down the stairs 1 foot at a time, the way, you should. So.
Okay, and what about now? Like, what are you? So the X10 is gone, so now you're on your own. What are you doing now to help yourself continue to be where you're at and move forward?
Well, I'm doing a lot of walking. Still doing a lot of bending exercises. I will just in the middle of the day, just standing around. I'll do some squats. I try to get down on the floor and kneel, and then see if how far I can lean back into it. So I can just, a lot of that isn't even the range of motion though. It's my muscles. They're so weak from, so
from
I really need
that
that X10 back for my strengthening.
I know it does, and it does help with that for sure. Yes, you do. A typical patient, Regina, honestly, even a year post surgery has a 30% deficit in their quad strength. So you want to keep working on that. So you want to keep building that. So you're right. Your intuition is dead on. What you're feeling is normal, what we see. So just keep working on that. Keep strengthening your quads and your hamstrings and your calf muscles, your entire leg, and just keep working on it.
Yeah, well, now that I walk without a limp, because before the machine came in, I was still walking with a slight limp. Now I walk without a limp. People they haven't seen me since, before the surgery or, after the surgery, but they haven't seen me since I had the X10 or whatever. They're so surprised. They're like, you don't have a brace? You don't have a cane? You're walking? So now that I have that, I can go to the gym now, and really start working on those the quads and the hamstrings and the calves and get everything working again.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you sound so vibrant, so peaceful, so happy. I am so right.
I'm so happy. I consider it the best money that I could have spent all year. I don't think of anything else that I don't have buyer's regret at all. Like sometimes when you spend a lot of money, you're like, oh, geez, should I have done that? Haven't once thought that. I've loved every minute of having it here, loved every minute of, being able to walk up and down stairs and walk normal since I've had it. So.
Well, what an honor for us to work with you, Gina, honestly. Honestly, that's what life's all about, right? That's what makes life enriching, is when you have an experience like this, right? And you overcome a challenge. You'll carry this whole experience will have hidden blessings within it that you'll keep finding out what exactly those hidden blessings are every year of your life. I'm not kidding you. This will have definitely changed you. Right? I
don't doubt that. It definitely has changed me. Yep.
So are you going to be able to take another cruise this time, actually enjoy the whole cruise? Right?
I'm not sure. We already had a trip planned for the kids to go to Disney World, so that's our next big vacation. So.
That's a perfect family vacation. I know. I always
before the X10 came into the house, I was thinking of canceling that because it's in August, and I didn't know if I would be able to walk correctly. After we had the X10 in, we decided, you know what, we're fine. So you might have to put a compression brace on, but I'll be fine. I can walk. So. Oh,
fantastic. Well, I always tell my children, vacations aren't a luxury. They're a necessity. You need time to kick back and, explore, laugh, have fun, and I always tell them too, for a family, that's the best way to connect, as a family. Yes. When you go on vacation together and you play and you laugh and just hang out with one another, talk about keeping you all close and bonded, right? How beautiful that you can take this beautiful vacation, because Disney's a lot of walking. So, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I am too.
Well, thank you, Regina. Anything else you want to say? Because, I want to make sure this isn't me, just asking you questions, you sharing whatever it is that you wanted to share.
No, I want to say even if you think that this isn't going to help you, it will help you. Even if it is only 5 degrees, it will help you. And but I don't think it would be only 5 degrees. If you put the work into it and because it's not going to be painless. There is going to be a little bit of pain. It's not, everything, takes work. But if you put the work in, you'll get a lot out of it.
To learn more, visit x10therapy.com, 1-855-910-5633. Just a reminder, it's a huge help if you subscribe to, rate, and review our podcast. It helps people find us.
X10, back to full strength.